So we're working on activity lesson 8-2, where we're going to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide these complex numbers. So I'm on page 126, and I'm going to work with you this first group of try these A. So the good news is that these imaginary numbers, even though remember I is not a variable. Remember, I is equal to the square root of -1. So it's not like an x. A lot of people want to say, oh, it's like an x. And even Springboard shows you, whoops, where's Springboard? Even Springboard shows you, hey, look, this acts like a binomial with an x. I'm just very scared of showing you that because people walk away thinking that I is a variable. I is not a variable. I has a value of square root of -1. So it's not a variable. This x right here could be anything. X could be 1, x could be -1/2, x could be the square root of 7. This value of x changes. This value of I does not. So it is not a variable, but it's going to behave very much like a variable while we are trying to add, subtract, multiply, and divide it. So when we add these together, we simply combine our like terms. We put the 6 and the 4 together and we get 10. We put a +5 and a -7 together and get -2i. Working across horizontally like that may not work for you, so if it doesn't, then come down here and stack them and put the like terms on top of each other. So now the 6 and the 4 will give you a 10, a +5, and a -7. The signs are different, so you subtract. 7 minus 5 gives you 2. Keep the sign of the larger number. Those are the rules that you learned in the 8th grade, 7th grade, pre-algebra, whatever. But anyway, you get the same answer. Doesn't matter to me how you do it. If you can do it horizontally like this, or if you need to stack it. A -5 and a -3 gives me a -8. A +3 and a -1, you're just doing the coefficients right here. You're just combining the coefficients. A +3 and a -1, that's a +2i. 2 and 2, that gives you 0. +3 and -3i, that gives you 0. So 0 plus 0i, that's just 0. Subtraction, the only difference over here with subtraction is going to be that you need to be careful and be sure that this is understood to be a -1 that's going to need to be distributed. One thing that you can do is stack it. The first one is written down the way it's given and then distribute that negative, and that negative is basically going to change the signs inside that parentheses. A negative times a negative makes a +5i. A negative times a positive is going to make a -4i. Okay, so I've just distributed that negative. Now it's just to combine your like terms. So that's 17 minus 17i. Okay, if it's a plus, you just put it together. That's 1/2 plus 5/2. That's 6/2. 6/2 is 3. Minus 1 plus 9. That's +8i. Oh, goodness. This is the real part. You're going to add the real part, the 2 and the 2 square root of 2. So when you add that together, you can't add it. That's just this and this added together is just that. That's the real part. That's A. And then your imaginary parts is, let's see, how am I going to write this? Let me do it like this. The square root of 2 minus 7i and 2 plus I cube roots of 3. So these two added together are 2 plus the square root of 2. And then these two added together, this is a 1. It's not really a 1 though because it's the square root of 3. So it's going to be plus the square root of 3 minus 7, because this number right here and this number right here have to go together. I'm going to put those in parentheses because the I goes with both of them. And you know, you can put that in parentheses too to show that's your A. So the value of A right there, your real part, is 2 plus the square root of 2, and the B part is the square root of 3 minus 7. That's a hard problem. So could they have written this the other way around? Yes. This problem right here could have been. You could also write that as 2 plus the square root of 2, and then plus negative 7 plus the square root of 3i. You could have rearranged those. The only reason I put the square root of 3 first is because the 7 was negative. That's the only reason I put the square root of 3 first. If you put it like this, then you'll want to put the negative with, be sure you put the negative with the 7. Okay, so this one has 3 parts, so we'll need to do these two together first. And let me erase this. So you'll need to put these two together first. So, and if you stack it, 8 minus 5i and negative 3 minus 5i, I distributed that negative, okay? And that's going to give me 5 minus 10i. So these two right here go together to form 5 minus 10i, and then I'm going to put that together with this one right here, plus negative 5 plus 10i. Okay, so these two need to be added together. So I've got 5 minus 10i from right here, and then I'm going to put minus 5 plus 10i from right here, and that looks like it's going to be 0. So that's just going to be a matter of practice, but you add the real parts and then you add the imaginary parts. For multiplying, you just do FOIL. You can also stack it. Or double distribution. Gosh, there's lots of ways to do this. So you can multiply, take the 6, this is double distribution, and multiply the 6 times this right here, and then multiply the 5i times this right here. That's double distribution. Okay, that's how you do it. If you do FOIL, then you're going to do 6 plus 5i times 4 minus 7i. FOIL, this is first, this is outer, this is inner, and this is last. Okay, so that's FOIL. You can do the box method. You can do 6 and 5i. And you can do 4 minus 7i. And I think I put too many lines. So let me erase this one. Erase this one. Okay, so you just multiply, and I'll go back and I'll do each one of these. So double distribution, FOIL, the box method. You can also stack it. 6 plus 5i times 4 minus 7i. And we're going to multiply those. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do all of them. I don't care which way you do it, but one of these ways should make sense to you. Pick your favorite way and then practice it. Doesn't matter to me. But here, before we get going, here's what I want to be sure you understand. What happens when we multiply I times I? you get I squared. That's absolutely correct. But you have to remember that I is a value. It's not a variable. So what we're really doing is multiplying the square root of -1 times the square root of -1. And what happens, or it may make more sense to do it like this. Let me do this. So when you multiply I times I, you get I squared, right? Well, remember, I is the value of the square root of -1. And what happens when we square a square root? Well, when you square a square root, those two things cancel each other out, and the answer is -1. So, yes, when you multiply I times I, you do get I squared, but I squared simplifies down to -1, and that's going to affect our final answer. So, for this one, oh goodness, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. So here's what I challenge you to do. Pick one of these methods: double distribution, FOIL, box method, or stacking. Pick one of those and multiply it out and see what you get for an answer. And we'll start my next video with these worked out, okay?